welcome back to my channel. My name is Laura Presnell, and I'm the founder of Balanced Bombshells, and I help women naturally balance their hormones through food, fitness, all of the lifestyle changes that we can do to bring our hormones back into balance. So whether you're trying to fix your PMS or period problems, or you want higher energy, better sleep, boosted fertility because you want to start a family, you want less bloating, especially in the midsection, which I see so often. It's definitely something I struggle with myself and then helping other women with, which is helping us dive into today's topic, which is, do you have estrogen dominance? So estrogen is like a really great hormone because like in balance, she helps us feel like confident, alluring, sexy. She makes us feel like more extroverted, just excited about life. But when out of balance, which you might feel at some points in your life or at points of your cycle, you feel bloated, irritable, you don't sleep as well, you don't want to talk to people. Like there's just a lot of emotional and physical roller coaster that unbalanced estrogen can provide us. So it's definitely a very common hormone imbalance that I see with a lot of women I work with. I work on my naturopath team and help with their patients, and estrogen dominance is something that I see with them as well. I personally struggled greatly with it. So I'm going to kind of just dive into what the symptoms are to help you understand a little bit better of like, are you struggling with it? Because it's so common that we're essentially taught as women that like it's normal to have these symptoms, where it's actually our body communicating to us that something is off and we actually don't have to live with the symptoms, right? Like the whole point is like changing our food and our fitness and our lifestyle to be able to make sure that we are happy, healthy, and functioning the way that we want. So one thing is, do you have PMS? So PMS can come forward from a variety of hormone imbalances, but one of them is having too high estrogen levels. So you can feel moodier before your period. You can feel like you don't sleep as well. You can feel like your bowel movements change. You can feel very bloated in the midsection or in the hips, thighs, and butt area. You'll notice acne breakouts along the jawline. That's very high estrogen based. You might notice at certain parts of your cycle, you have more fatigue, where you're like, wow, I like slept through the night, but I still am struggling. Estrogen can kind of create fatigue. And then at other parts of the cycle, when it's high during ovulation, estrogen peaks. So that's when estrogen is the highest. I personally noticed a lot of these high estrogen symptoms during ovulation, but you might notice that your energy is like so high that you actually feel like you can't calm down. So it's like the opposite of fatigue. You feel just more agitated and like high strung, where you're like, this just isn't necessarily who I am, yet this is how I'm feeling, and I don't really know what to do about it. You can get headaches, especially right before your period. I used to struggle greatly with migraines as my period was coming and then as my period started. So there's definitely a lot of fluctuations with our hormones before and during our period. So just starting to pay attention to these symptoms too can help you pinpoint the hormones. So today, talking about estrogen is helping you be like, okay, is estrogen an issue? A lot of women end up having weight gain in their hips, thighs, and butt area when estrogen is too high. So it's either weight gain or you notice water retention, which comes and goes with your cycle. So in ovulation, when estrogen peaks, I definitely noticed my body had a harder time metabolizing estrogen well, and I would gain more water retention in those areas. And then as ovulation would drop off, the water retention would go away. So it wasn't necessarily I was gaining weight and that was the new normal all the time. It was definitely water weight, but I was noticing a fluctuation with my body, and it was very directed towards too high estrogen levels. You might notice more of a depressed mood, especially if you're having that like agitated state. Irritability, foggy thinking. When you sit down to your computer to like do work, you're like, well, I really can't think straight. Estrogen can also get in the way of the way our brain is trying to function, which impacts our work, just trying to get stuff done, especially if you're type A like me and you're like, I just have so many things that I want to get done and accomplish. And then we talked a bit about breakouts, but the telltale sign of higher estrogen levels, if those breakouts are along your jawline, your chin, mouth area. So basically to counteract progesterone, like what is happening with this imbalance is Estrogen is high, which means progesterone is too low. So they're sister hormones, which means that they're on this natural seesaw together. So in the first half of our cycle, estrogen is supposed to increase to help us ovulate, to help us feel more energetic. You might notice that if you've been cycle syncing. If you haven't, I have a free course about cycle syncing that kind of breaks down the phases of your cycle and how you're supposed to feel each week. So you can definitely notice a predictability with your energy, your productivity, your stress levels. So it's a helpful tool, especially if you're trying to figure out like which hormones are off and you don't necessarily want to do any hormone testing yet. It's just really good to know your body. Because for me, like it wasn't realistic to get my hormones tested every single month, even like multiple times a year. I try to do it like once a year now versus feeling like I needed to do it all the time just to monitor things. Your mood and emotion and how your symptoms are based on where you are in your cycle actually can tell you what your hormones are doing. So that's a great course. I'll drop it in a link below. It's called Cycle Syncing Made Easy. It's completely free to take, and it helps you just kind of understand your cycle hormones too. So during the first part of your cycle, you're supposed to feel naturally confident. You can recover from workouts better. You can take on more at work. Like you just kind of feel like you're flowing with life. When estrogen is too high in that part of the cycle, you'll feel more agitated. You'll feel like you have a harder time calming down at night to be able to go to sleep. You'll notice that you just don't feel like yourself. Like you're just definitely noticing more agitation, which is like estrogen is a very stimulating hormone. So it can actually make us feel more stimulated. So then in the later part of our cycle, before your period is starting, progesterone is supposed to rise and the two is supposed to balance out. So estrogen is supposed to come down, progesterone is supposed to rise to basically help prepare your body for a baby, whether you're trying to have one or not. Because when we have our period, we shed the lining of our uterus, which is meaning like, hey, you're not pregnant. But progesterone actually helps build that lining of the uterus for a fertilized egg for when you are going to try. And our body does that every single month, regardless if we're going to be having a family or not. So when progesterone is in balance, you feel calm before your period. You feel like you're not gaining weight. Like progesterone actually helps with a lot of reducing water retention, especially before a period. It helps with clear skin. It helps with good hair. Like it's also known as our beauty hormone. So if you're noticing a lot of the symptoms before your period of bloating, irritability, the PMS, the breakouts, um, mood swings, that's definitely an indication that progesterone and estrogen are not in balance in relationship with each other. So that was one of the main issues that I struggled with. My body was having a harder time like metabolizing the excess estrogen in my body. So I just kept having more estrogen kind of being refiltered through the body, and it was causing progesterone to not be able to increase the way that it needed to. So I'd feel happy and calm before my period, or I'd have clear skin before my period and not feel bloated, and all the things that kind of women come up against that we're told is like, oh yeah, that's normal. Just because something's common doesn't mean it's normal. Like, especially now that I have balanced my hormones so well, like I don't get breakouts before my period. I feel extremely calm and happy before my period starts. Like I might need to lie down and take a nap and manage my energy because progesterone can make you very sleepy before your period. And even during pregnancy, like progesterone is one of the hormones we really need to support a healthy pregnancy. So if you've ever been pregnant or you've heard women kind of going through their pregnancy, they might feel really lethargic and tired. It's because progesterone is naturally higher during pregnancy and makes us feel more sleepy. So it's all like kind of just understanding how these hormones are supposed to make us feel and like what's normal, what's not, which is why I wanted to have this conversation with you today to just kind of go over, do you have estrogen dominance? What are the symptoms? What does that actually look like? So something I had to work through was actually supporting my liver health better. So our liver helps process out our hormones and toxins and anything else that our body doesn't need. It helps us filter it out when it's essentially done its job. So if our liver is blocked, it basically sends the hormones to be recycled again to come back and wait in line to be processed out of the body. And if things are kind of like struggling in that area, and this is just one example, there's certainly like a whole slew of other things that we could get into, but for today's topic, just kind of focusing on the liver being really important. That helps you feel the way that you want to feel instead of having the symptoms of high estrogen. So that's something that I work with my clients on. It's something I work with my patients through my naturopath with, and something you can work on for yourself is just like focusing on supporting your liver. So that's our detox hormone. So the more that the hormones can be sweeping through and out of our body when they're done doing their job, the better we feel. So I've definitely noticed a huge improvement with myself where I don't get PMS anymore. I'm currently in my second pregnancy as I'm filming this. We're due in about a month and we're having a girl. And I definitely noticed that some of the higher estrogen symptoms came back in the first trimester and into the second, because the way our OB explained it is when you're having a girl, not only do you have your own estrogen that you're producing, but you're also producing her estrogen as well. So I was noticing that I had more water retention in my hips, thighs, and butt area. My hair quality wasn't as great. I had some breakouts, but thankfully for the most part, my skin has stayed very clear during this pregnancy. So it's even just interesting of like, yeah, I fixed estrogen dominance once, but I did notice that my body was having higher estrogen levels, and it was very related to having a girl, which I found very fascinating. So if you've been pregnant, if you've had a girl, definitely let me know if you experience any of these symptoms during your pregnancy, because it's just a lot to manage. So on my own, I had fixed excess estrogen really well, but then when you're pregnant, your body's working overtime to not only produce the hormones that you need, but also the hormones that your baby needs. And then apparently gender can also dictate, and this is certainly my experience. Not every woman is going to be like that, but it's something that my OB had brought up when I had explained, like, yeah, I'm definitely noticing some higher estrogen with my shifts as I'm going through this pregnancy. But in my next video, I'm going to be sharing 3 ways that you can help naturally lower estrogen. So it's really going to be helping target your liver. It's really going to be helping target that excess estrogen. And if you want to dive deeper, you can certainly sign up to do a one-on-one discovery call with me to see if we want to work together, and I can help support you one-on-one and give you that accountability that you need. Or I have a program called Moody Meltdowns to Balanced Bombshell, which helps you naturally increase your progesterone and balance your estrogen really effectively to kind of bring those two into balance. So regardless of what your goals are, women have used it for boosting their fertility when they want to get pregnant. They've been using it to get rid of PMS and period problems. They've been doing it to also just like understand how these hormones are interacting with your body. So if you're super into like what I've been talking about in terms of how the emotional side of hormones come into our body and how we can use food and fitness a little bit differently and just be more targeted based off our goals, that program is for you. So I will also drop it in the description box if you'd like to sign up for it. It's completely automated, so you dive into it on your own time. And then, of course, I'm always here for the questions that you have. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.